I'm the founder of a wonderful organisation called Young New Yorkers. We are a true alternative to incarceration for young people here in New York City. It's an arts-based program, so instead of going to jail or incurring other adult sanctions, young people can come to our 1-day, 4-week or 8-week programs, and they have their cases dismissed and sealed. That means no permanent adult record, the collateral consequences of which can be absolutely devastating. We began Young New Yorkers at the height of mass incarceration, and at that time 16 and 17-year-olds were automatically prosecuted and sentenced as adults. And in the 10 years we've been working, 16 and 17-year-olds now are considered to be children again, and they go through family court and they don't incur a lifelong criminal record, which limits things like access to some forms of employment, social services such as housing and educational scholarships. And these are all things that young people who get arrested tend to need more than others, because who is given a chance to learn from their mistakes here in New York City and who is punished for them falls along racial lines, and particularly people that live in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods. No. I actually trained for 6 years to be an architect, and I practiced as an architect for about 10 years. And I loved the profession so much, but in 2008, when the recession came, I lost my job here in New York City, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do a master's at Columbia University, an advanced architectural design master's. And at the end of that program, I won a fellowship for an architectural project of social significance. So I proposed the project Young New Yorkers, a one-off public art project to provide a platform for 16 and 17-year-olds who are being prosecuted as adults to advocate for change, given that they were too young to vote and impact the legislation directly. In 2012, 1 year after I was awarded the fellowship, Chief Judge Littman announced that he was going to raise the age of criminal responsibility, and all of a sudden it became politically astute to offer different sentencing options inside adult courts for teenagers. And so with two of my friends who were public defenders, they snuck me into Judge Gabay's court as he was setting up his bench, and I pitched the program. I said I had funding from Columbia University. I didn't mention that it was from the architecture school, and he said yes on the spot. And 2 months later, we had our first 8 young people in our program. I collaborated intensively with social workers, artists, designers, and therapists to create that first program. But true to the original intention, at the end of that 8 weeks, we held quite a large public art installation that had been created by the young people in the program. And what I didn't expect was for prosecutors and judges to attend the exhibition and hear directly from the young people and be so moved by who they were and what they could achieve and what they were advocating for. And several of the prosecutors wept, and I was then in a very unique situation where prosecutors and defense attorneys and judges were all asking for Young New Yorkers to continue not as a project but an ongoing organization. And so out of my commitment to the young people, I began to learn what it was to run a not-for-profit and became an executive director. And that work lasted for 10 long, beautiful, amazing years. I think one of the most exciting things about my role has been to speak to New York City through the work. I think a lot of people think of the young people in my programs as those kids out there, or in many cases as those bad kids, those monsters. And in fact, it's very easy to show through our program that that's just a heartbreaking almost violent break in our imagination about who our young people are. Young New Yorkers are our kids too, and they're incredible, and they have so much to offer, and they're just like any other young person that needs some help growing up, but who is always, just extraordinary in what they have to offer. So that's been absolutely one of the highlights, is to learn from the young people themselves and to partner with so many incredible people in creating very meaningful and sustained changes in the system that allow a space for young people to learn and grow rather than be punished for life and, I would say, oppressed in very racist ways. There are many challenges. Not-for-profits often don't have enough resources. In order to prove ourselves for city funders, we need to do a lot with very little to get off the ground. There can be, inside of social justice, a lot of different points of view about what racial justice is and what it isn't, what justice for young people is and what it isn't, and holding space for those many different conversations can be tiring and take an enormous amount of grace, but they're always worthwhile. I think many people come into the social justice space expecting it to be very right and wrong, very just and unjust and very clear. But actually every single person who is in the space, who's impacted by the criminal legal system, has vastly different experiences about what it is to be human. And as a consequence, really different points of view on what is just and unjust. I think it's actually one of the most contested spaces of all professions, because people are carrying different traumas and different ideas about what racial justice is and what justice is and what restorative justice is. The other thing that I think is challenging is that to do meaningful work in this space, you have to be extremely collaborative. And as a leader, you have to hold space for multiple different points of view and really have every single person in that space feel deeply heard and deeply understood. And it's only then that you can move forward.